Hello and welcome to Intentional Creativity as a Path to Higher Expression. I'm Swati Kameswar and this is my Soulwork project for the Color of Woman Training 2023. Astrology and creativity have been a huge part of my journey to authentic and joyful self-expression. In this video, I want to share how I combine astrology and intentional creativity to create a bridge to higher expression and embody my uniqueness with play, joy, and beauty. My story begins in late 2014, where I found myself deeply grateful for all that I had in my life. I had checked off many things on my life's to-do list, and yet I felt disillusioned. I was an engineer and a manager at the time, and while experiencing a lot of success in my career thus far, I knew that I was reaching the end of that path, but I didn't know what was next. And on a quiet winter evening, after my two sweet young children went to bed, I sat in silence listening to the voice within, and from my deepest self, I clearly heard the word creativity. And this made a lot of sense to me because as a child, I had loved to paint. And somewhere in the journey of life, growing up, studying, getting a job, marrying, and having two children, I had forgotten what creativity meant. So I did take action on this insight and I started to scrapbook again, which is something that I had loved doing, but I started to do it digitally this time. Because as a mom with two kids and a full-time job, scrapbooking with paper was time-consuming. And digital scrapbooking initially quenched my thirst for joyful creativity, but I was still feeling a gap. And while these creative projects helped a lot and they helped me feel good, I was thirsting for something deeper. So in July 2015, I had my first introduction to astrology through the cycle of the planet Venus. And at the time, Venus was beginning a new 19-month cycle around the sun in the sign of Leo. Venus in astrology represents the divine feminine, and her 19-month cycle is what inspired the ancients to create the story of Inanna's descent into the underworld and ascent back into empowerment. And I didn't know it then, but I was going through a Venus return cycle because I would turn 40 in that cycle a couple of years later. And this is a key initiation in every life. So I started to work with Venus and the divine feminine through ritual in 2015. And I worked with every Venus cycle since then. This awoke, healed, and strengthened my relationship to the divine feminine in huge ways. And by this time, I had learned that I was going through some pretty big planetary transits of Pluto, Chiron, Uranus, Neptune, the works that were inspiring a major awakening within me, and that this phase is also commonly known as midlife crisis. I was also learning that the midlife phase has huge implications on the rest of our life, and it was essential to navigate this phase consciously to align with higher soul purpose and to go beyond traditional titles and roles and careers. As a result, I started to explore many new topics related to self-development, karmic clearing and healing, and astrology in order to understand the purpose of these transits that I was going through and to just simply navigate this incredibly challenging time of my life with some clarity. But having a mental idea of the transit is one thing, and working consciously with it to embody its gifts is something different altogether. I was beginning to recognize the nature of karma, that challenging times are often challenging because they bring up unresolved patterns which are not aligned with wholeness and love. And these patterns are being brought up during that transit for resolution. And I also realized that if I don't create my life consciously, I will continue to recreate the misaligned patterns. In other words, I will continue to be stuck in that karmic loop. And this gave me pause. It was not enough to just clear the past, but it was essential to be fully present in the now and create the future consciously. And I decided I would do just that. In fact, I went further and declared to myself that I would clear my karma completely. And that was a pretty big intention I set for myself. And I felt deep down it was possible. In fact, there was such a strong urgency to do just that, to clear the karma. But how to do that so that it becomes a default state and not just something that happens when somebody triggers me? And was my goal unrealistic? And was I just being naive? That is when intentional creativity came into my life. I happened upon Amber Bonici's 2016 winter solstice Women Unleashed event, and that opened up a completely new world to me. This is where I first came across Shiloh Sophia and her incredible work, and this form of creativity that she called intentional creativity spoke to my soul in a very resonant way. I took several of her many complimentary classes that she generously offers, and each one started to awaken the creativity within me, and my soul's voice became louder. I was already beginning to study astrology in earnest, and I knew that this was next on my life's path. But the fear of change, of the unknown, and of moving away from engineering was still very strong. Then I did my first 13-step process, Tea with the Muse, in August of 2018, and I really didn't know what to expect. During this process, I accidentally spilled black paint on the cardboard that I was painting on, and rather than clean it up, I decided to follow the flow, feeling that it had something to share with me. And what the muse ended up revealing to me was something I knew deep within, but I had not been able to fully accept and acknowledge because of the fear. She was singing the song of the planets, and she was clearly showing me the way, articulating in symbol and color and play and fun what my next step was. This experience shook me in a very good way, and it really solidified my faith in my inner voice. I then remembered how I had been working with Venus, which is a divine feminine energy, since 2015, and I knew that the divine feminine had been guiding me all along. So I started to create paintings to honor my work with each Venus cycle, and they usually have an image of the divine feminine within them. These paintings intentionally called out and honored the gifts I received in each cycle, 7 gifts for the 7 chakras. I almost applied for Color of Woman in 2018. In fact, I even filled out the form, but I didn't hit submit because it felt too overwhelming at the time. So I spent the next few years in my own personal practice applying what I understood of intentional creativity to the changes that I was experiencing then. I started to apply IC to other big transits that I was going through. I worked with all the planets and all their energies. Pluto for absolute truth and empowerment, Uranus for awakening of higher unique gifts, Chiron for healing and remembering ancient and future gifts, Venus for getting super clear on my values and an unshakable connection to the feminine within, Mars for clean, clear, aligned action, taking responsibility and holding space for my big transformation. That means having a very healthy relationship with the masculine within. Mercury for upleveling my default mindset, and Saturn for helping me to build mastery in new skills for a new career after my old ones started to dissolve during this process of transformation. And most recently, during Color of Woman, I have been working with Neptune for aiding in dissolving of my old self and strengthening my connection to the divine and to creativity. As a result, I started to experience a deeper realization of the gifts of the planetary transits, meaning that I was embodying the essence more and more as I worked consciously with them, even if they were challenging. I still had to do the hard inner work of courageously facing the shadow of the transit, the fear, the unresolved karmic patterns, and the big emotions that are an inevitable part of deep and permanent transformation. But working intentionally with them, calling out the gifts and receiving those gifts showed me a solid pathway to clear karma and to move on to a higher expression. I went on to pick up new skills of astrology, coaching, sound healing, and many others so that I could hold space for others to experience big transformation in their life. And I eventually moved out of my role as an engineer and a manager to become a visionary coach for engineers, guiding folks to transform burnout and align with their authentic expression. In other words, I was bringing an old expression to completion and moving on to a higher expression filled with life force energy, creativity, joy, and service. I was living my soul purpose in an intentional way and stepping into my innate creator energy to create a life of my dreams. In 2020 and 2021, I led a 19-month program called Expanding Magic with Venus as the focus, and this took my relationship to the divine feminine to another level. When this cycle came to a close in December of 2021, I very loudly and clearly heard the call to go on the journey of Color of Woman. And here I am now at the threshold of completing this beautiful program, and intentional creativity has given me a path to not just reclaim my creativity and higher expression, but awaken in me a way to embody my creator state. I truly and deeply feel held by the divine in my journey. And what a powerful, priceless gift this is. And what a way to deeply, richly live into this incarnation. And for that, I am deeply grateful to this practice, this movement, and community and its lineage. I now apply this philosophy of intentional creativity to my sacred work. I am at present a visionary coach helping women and men who are going through midlife awakening to embody their highest expression so that they can live with authenticity and joy. And in my programs and coaching, I use intentional creativity processes to cause and create positive change and curate a new self, the higher self. Here I would like to share a couple of ways that I bring IC into my work. During the Color of Woman training, as part of my practice teaching events, I taught the Amuse process 3 times to women engineers, as well as a 13-step process to reconnect them to their visionary muse. And during the Talisman process, I created a course called The Gift of Your Authentic Voice, which is a big part of my soul work. This course seeks to heal the wounding around expression through working with Chiron, Pluto, and Saturn to enable their highest gifts. And I've used IC in 2 different ways in my work. In The Gift of Your Authentic Voice, I use IC processes to transmute the wounds related to Chiron, Saturn, and Pluto as they show up in expression by using metacognitive drawing and painting as a way to shift energy during inquiries. I use the Amuse process to integrate the wound and the wisdom into one strong, loving, confident voice, and integrate the left brain and the right brain and heart to allow for more engagement with life. The Muse process also gives them access to the muse of playfulness, bringing them out of the shadow of the wound that is represented by Chiron, Pluto, and Saturn, because those transits can be very heavy. So giving folks an access to play is such a key part of this process. And these are some of the things that I have noticed with the Amuse process. It's harder for higher expression to come through when the mind, body, and emotions are not in coherence. Regular practice of IC wakes us up to the truth within us, and it rewires and rebuilds neural pathways in the brain to listen and to respond to this truth. The painting process is guided by our intuition and intention to experience a certain state, feel a desired feeling, while at the same time adding that into the painting as our intention. This visual representation activates the optic nerve, the brain, and the heart, which starts to heal the fragmentation, resulting in coherence and making visible possibilities we may not have noticed before. This energy then slowly seeps into other areas of our life. As we practice this more and more, the wound starts to transform into wisdom. A second way that I use IC is in my program called Power of Balance, which is a one-on-one coaching program. Here we use the natal chart astrology in a very unique way to help individuals embody their superpowers coded in the natal chart, and hence their soul's intention. My desire was to use the 13-step process during the 6-month coaching program. I've adapted this 13-step process to create a workshop called Unique Boutique, which is applied to the natal chart to embody their uniqueness and soul purpose, including the higher essence of the natal chart and the planets that are activating it at that time. Bringing intention into a painting means allowing the heart and the intuition to guide the way and being as intentional as possible with brushstroke, color, listening deeply to the voice within, and adding symbols and images that arise from the most authentic parts of us. Making art intentionally during big midlife planetary transits to release the shadow from unresolved karmic patterns and embody the highest essence of the transit is a potent way to design our future and the next phase of our life. Creating this astro art changes the person creating it, and working with this transit intentionally and involving the creating process changes the way you experience the transit. Each one of these paintings is a journey completed over several days or weeks or even months, as we consciously work with that transit, inviting the higher essence of it. I also bring my deep and intimate connection to Gaia and nature into the creative process as a way to move into the consciousness of the new earth. This embodiment of the natal chart impacts the person going through this journey in a very powerful way. So to summarize, in Gift of Your Authentic Voice, we use IC to heal the past and to bring peace into the present. Then once we establish that habit, it becomes easier to go further, and in Power of Balance, we consciously create the future that is most aligned to the soul's highest path in this incarnation. The act of creating consciously invites and activates our creator muscle. We are not just creating something from the past knowledge of what is real, but walking into the unknown with trust and no fear, and inviting the universe to reveal new possibilities. We move out of just consuming content or doing without conscious thought, and we take ownership for embodying our creator state. This is an incredible gift and power. Acknowledging responsibility for our innate ability to create our reality, we begin to respond to life with trust and confidence in this ability. I've learned that IC is not about things turning out perfectly simply because we bring in intention, because perfection, in my experience, is a myth. Rather, it is about flowing with life and trusting deep within that the universe is benevolent and here to support us. And when we bring this intention, our body, feels, brain, heart all start to respond to life in that way, and the universe responds to that vibration. I have found that IC has far-reaching impact and will start to seep into every area of your life eventually if we allow it to do so, thereby uplifting all areas of our life. Some of the big benefits I have found with working with intentional creativity processes in this way, and also the 13-step method, has been the ability to curate my consciousness and embody the gifts of tough planetary transits that create big transformation, honoring the energy of the planets and the rhythm of the cosmos, and inviting forth their higher essence, thereby connecting to the higher consciousness of the solar system and beyond. Provided a really powerful and constructive way to work with the unseen and the unknown, and it gives us courage to walk a new path. It has enabled me to go beyond karmic healing and step into creator energy. It has woken up my authentic expression and exuberant creative drive, and it has deepened my connection to the divine. I always knew that connection was there, but IC just made me realize how easy it is to access my intuition and connection to greater mystery. And finally, it has given me consistent access to unshakable self-love, joy, aliveness, and deep peace. And it has upleveled my mental and emotional vibration that spills out into all aspects of my life. Now, as I move towards completion of Color of Woman, I see myself deepening my teacher skills by facilitating workshops like Amuse and Unique Boutique, as well as Visionary, building this new muscle of IC teacher, and helping others heal the past wounds and move into the future by using IC in the present. Finally, deep gratitude and thank you for this incredible life-enhancing journey. I want to especially thank my pod leader, Leslie Nolan, for her wisdom and for holding space during this big journey. To all the support team, to Trish, Milagros, Linda, Jennifer, Stella Mack, Annette, and Ali for holding us in incredible kindness, patience, and for your wise words. For my cohort sisters Joan and Phoebe, and all my sisters taking part in this journey, for your willingness to go on this beautiful, beautiful path. I also want to honor my beautiful parents whose presence and love I feel every day. And finally, big love and thanks to my husband Kameswar and my sweet kids Siddhant and Sahana for enabling me to be my wild and unique self with joy. Thank you.